Welcome back to Black and Curious. I'm Kendrin.
I'm Deja. And yeah, we've
So,
been here.
first, before we get started, you know how the girls are like, all of these fancy lip colors and the brands are coming out and stuff? Sometimes, every now and again, I'll put on a lipstick like the one I'm wearing now, and it just gives me I feel like my mother in the 90s. It like that fuchsia Mary Kay that the dark skinned girls wore in the 90s. And I don't know how I feel about it, but I keep putting it on. So here we are. Let me know if y'all feel the same way as I do.
With you, but like to the point of like feeling like your mom in the 90s with her makeup habits, baby, this face is my mother. Only thing that's different is the step up of foundation and concealer, because she did not wear that.
Yeah.
But yes, my mom, before
mine
she
is
would
the
leave the
dumbed
house,
down version of my mom, because my mom continues to wear a lot more makeup than I do.
My mom would not leave the house without her eyebrows, her blush, and her lipstick and mascara.
My mother is very pleased all of a sudden that I'm wearing any makeup at all, because when I was a teenager, she was like, "Hey, don't you want to put a little something here, maybe?" And I was just like, "Girl, no, I'm not interested." So every time she sees me with makeup on, she's just like, "It just looks so pretty."
That was more my aunt when I was in my early 20s, like 21, 22. No, I'm lying. I was about 23, 24. Because I had really started to get into like makeup.
Yeah.
And so like I would do my whole face, and then my aunt would be like, "Ooh, let me see. Come here, let me see you." My mother wasn't the makeup girl. My aunt was absolutely down to her socks. She would go to the Estee Lauder counter and get her palettes and her foundation and her mascara. Mm-hmm. And like, well, my aunt was an artist. She could paint. So that's where I get my love of like painting from, and then the makeup thing for sure. So like, yeah, I miss her, my Shelly Rue.
Yeah. So anyways, moving on. I had to get that off my chest about this lipstick, because it gives me that every time I wear it.
You be looking at yourself like, ooh, look at my mom.
And I don't generally think I look that much like my mom, even though a lot of people would disagree. But do you disagree?
Yes. I think you look like your mom. I've always said that.
Everybody says that I look like I'm identical almost to my mom, and I don't see it. I see it more in like my aunt. Actually, my aunts on both sides. So
I've always said that you look like your mom. Y'all don't look like Doublemint twins or nothing, like my mother and I, but like, yeah. Excuse me. Lord, almost choked. Especially like when I had those the faux locks, and I did that side by side with me and my mom.
Ooh. When you had the faux locks, man,
look just like her. It's so crazy.
Doublemint. Very, very Doublemint.
So it's just my mom has like her locks are graying. So like if I put a little gray right there. So anyway, good old Teresa. Love her down to her socks. Okay. So this week we're talking about self-care. And this came about from conversations that Kendra and I had already shared about like our self-care over the years, and like how we fell into therapy and what that's done for us. I think in the previous episode, we were actually discussing like boundary setting, and like how all that came about because of having gone to therapy and like had someone sit down and kind of advocate with you for yourself. So, excuse me. Gracious. So to that point, that's my phrase today. I keep saying to that point. Anyway, I picked up this here book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And this is by Nedra Tawwab. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. She is, I think she's a LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor or practical counselor, something like that. And so she has like a lot of little good, like, gracious, I'm so sorry. A lot of little tidbits in here. I have taken some notes here. Have you had a chance to, I know you said that this book was in your list. Did you get a chance to look at it yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, I don't want to ruin the book for you.
No, it's fine. I'll still read it.
Because I'm like, dang, I don't want to do that.
Well, let's just start talking about a little bit about what got us to therapy. I know we touched on it before, but let's be a little bit more like, get more into the journey.
Girl, my family is crazy. That's what got me to therapy. Okay. Crazy as a shithouse mouse. Like
that, you don't say a lot of country stuff, but that is really, wow, that went very country for me.
I mean, listen, I'm just embracing the fact that I sound like as my family calls it, I am the country bumpkin. It is certain things that I say.
Bumpkin for sure. That was, wow. That
One
was
of my old bosses
like
say that.
Jeb and in them in the backyard.
Back yonder.
Back yonder.
Oh, yes. I mean, whatever. I embrace it. I'm a little I'm not gonna take country, but I'll do Southern. How about that?
Valid.
But yeah, my damn family is fucking crazy. I was supposed to remove the colorful language. I curse like a sailor. I'm gonna work on it.
Well, same, but I'm trying. In case somebody sees this, my family is real churchy, so I'll be trying not to do too much.
The blessings of the heathens that I'm related to. Don't know about being in church like that. Except for my daddy, and he be quiet. Daddy don't say nothing.
Typically, I do cuss like a sailor. Well, my thing about therapy and how I got there was kind of a little winding road. I always knew I wanted to go. I was a psych major, and I really believe that everybody needs some time on the couch. I truly believe that from the depths of my soul, but I just never did it. But I found I had a couple of like transition points that were incredibly rough on me. So the transition from 29 to 30, like my whole entire being was like shaking, literally. I went to the doctor. I was having all these like random body symptoms and like tingling and pins and needles. I went to the doctor. I thought like I had some sort of brain tumor or something, of course, because you always think the worst. And I went to the doctor and she was like, I'm going to examine you, but I think you're just having extreme anxiety right now. You need to go talk to somebody. At that time, though, there was a transition with my insurance, so I didn't know if I actually had the insurance to be able to go talk to somebody. Yeah. So I kind of did it all through, I did like a lot of self-healing, so to speak, of like gratitude journaling and coping mechanisms. My therapist also not my therapist, my doctor also told me that I needed to work on getting good coping mechanisms. And she gave me meds and was like, if you don't work on it, I'm going to have to put you on meds, basically. So I was like, okay, well, I will work on it. But I was able to bring myself back from a very, very, very dark place. And after that, I started having, so I guess a few years passed, maybe 3 years passed. And I was in a new job that I thought was going to like solve my problems because I was feeling better and whatever. And I was noticing that I was having those symptoms restarting. And I wasn't confident in my ability to bring myself out of it twice. And so I was like, I need to go get some help. And so that's when I went to therapy. And it has been great for me, really just for transitions. Like I won't say nothing. I'm hard on myself more than anything, and especially with accomplishments and things of that nature. So it's helped me with that. But just with life transitions and those sticky spaces, it helps me to kind of have a space to like process that. And my therapist is good about giving assignments and homework and like exercises that I can use both in session, but also I can take with me and reference back to. So I think it's been good for me as a person who struggles a little bit with transitions.
I would agree that I'm also someone who can struggle a little bit with transitions. Like I don't really do change well. But at the same time, like change is always ever coming. So it's not, gracious, there's not anything that we can do to just stop the flow of life. For me, I honestly, and like my therapist could attest to this. My first day, I went in and I was like, I'm here because I have decided I'm going to pay somebody to listen to me because I'm so tired of being of service to everybody else and everyone wanting to talk to me about their ish, and I not ever having an outlet because they aren't able to hold the space that I need held for me.
Valid.
And when I said it, she just like cracked up laughing because like she was like, that is like a lot of self-awareness there. And also in regards to like of knowing what it is that you need in the friendships that you have and them not being able to really hold that type of space. So
yeah.
I think that I just part of it too was like we shared similar background education wise of having studied psych in undergrad, and then I went into my master's program to do clinical social work. And so I just was like, I know that I know the tools, right? But I just need somebody to listen. Because me therapizing myself all these years has been all right, but now I'm so frustrated that I can't, my coping mechanisms are not working. And no, you should not be providing therapy to yourself.
Yeah.
But I did. So as most, like as they said, most doctors make terrible patients. Like life coaches and or already practicing therapists often make terrible clients because we know the shit already.
Right.
So
where you think you know best. Yeah.
Right. I think for me, a lot of it was like our conversation that we had in episode 2 was I just was missing boundaries, and my infamous phrase is I was a no boundary having ass, yeah, TCH. My mother tells me that I should stop calling myself a bitch. I'm like, Mom, it's just a vernacular that we use. Like,
good advice though.
I mean, agreed, but it's just like I have been saying that since I was in middle school. Not necessarily calling myself a bitch, but I've been saying bitch since I was in middle school.
Oh yes, same.
So like I don't know how to change my own vernacular. But yeah.
Boundaries was definitely, I don't know, like it's funny because in some spaces I do boundaries really well, like in work, for instance. I'm outstanding with boundaries because I just be like, no. Somebody asked me, can you do blah, blah, blah? I don't have the capacity for that today. I can give it to you tomorrow or, whatever. I'm very good with that. But in other spaces, I'm not so good. I tend to be a person who bottles things up. And then all of a sudden I'm like exploding all over the place. So like therapy has definitely helped me with that. Cause like one of my biggest things, when I sat down, I would be like telling my therapist all this stuff. And she was like, well, did you tell the person? And I'm like, no, I'm waiting for the right opportunity. And she was like, girl, you got to say it. Like people can't read your mind. You got to say it. And so like now it's funny because I'll say certain things to her and she'd be like, did you say that? And I was like, yeah. And I said it just like that too. And she was like, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Like
hello.
Like, yes, go you.
I think that my struggle has been I care too much about the person on the receiving end receiving what it is that I'm saying, right? Because I understand that if I have the slightest bit of, and this is on anybody's part, like if you have the slightest bit of like attitude or like anger in your voice, then they're not going to hear what you're saying. They're just going to hear the attitude that comes along with the words.
Right.
And so because of that, I feel like even though that's a good trait to have, for me, it's good and it's bad because it hinders me from speaking my mind sometimes. Especially when it comes to like interpersonal relationships, so like family and like friends. Some friends I can say, exactly what it is that I'm feeling or whatever the case may be. And then sometimes, like more often than not, honestly, I find it difficult to express like what it is that I feel in the moment. Like at work, like I'm like you, boom, this is what it is. And I don't care if you like it or not. But like in like familial, like prime example, Father's Day weekend, my parents came in town because I was going to make a seafood etouffee for my dad for Father's Day. And my mom is, they're opposites. Dad is quiet, mom is fiery, right? So like mom is just, she gets here and like you, off top, when you come in my house, I have a no shoe rule beyond the front door. There's like a little doormat for shoes. And so off top, she's not wanting to, she's like, get out of the way. I need to go to the bathroom. And then goes in my bathroom with her shoes on that carpet that's in the bathroom. And I was just like,
yeah.
Like, what do you do? Like, I already said it twice. And she had on flip flops. Okay. Like, mom could just took them things off.
Yeah.
But then that wasn't so much a big deal as much as it was that it was like adding insult to injury. Then the next thing was like, she just was in this funky ass mood. And it's like, get yourself together. Yeah. Like, her whole thing was, well, I didn't want to come and I don't want to be here and da-da-da-da. So I'm like, okay, so because you are in a bad mood, you're going to ruin everybody else's time? Is this what we're doing today? And I literally said that, right? Which kudos, because years ago, she would never do that. But what really needed to be said was that her attitude and how she was acting, that shit really hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And it shut me down. And I just, like, I ended up just seething and snapping at my dad a little bit until we got to, because we had to leave to go pick up the other stuff so that I can make this fresh. And so it wasn't until we got to the store and walked around the store for a little bit that I finally was okay. And mind you, that was like 20, 30 minutes later.
Yeah.
But I never said anything, like never said the thing that needed to be said, which was that her attitude really hurt my feelings because as much as I'm making this meal for my dad for Father's Day, I'm also, making it for you. Like I bought all this stuff to have dinner with my parents on this day and took my mom out to Wegmans because she's always wanted to go to Wegmans. Now, Wegmans is like, you've been up here. Wegmans is hella far away from where I live at. Mm-hmm. So and we had all these conversations about doing this. So I was just like,
yeah. I think I'm sort of the same way because like what I found myself doing, I used to be very coarse. My demeanor was very rough and I would say any and everything. And I think it was really in college where I was just like, people were telling me how rough I was being to them. And I was like, oh my God, that was not my intention. I was very much like, well, if you ask me, I'm gonna tell you the truth. And it's like, okay, but you
get to say it that way.
You didn't have to say it like that. Like, yes, but. And sometimes nobody asks you at all. Like sometimes somebody just wants to be able to vent or whatever. And so what I overcorrected. And so I just started swallowing everything.
Oh, yeah.
And not saying anything. So I think therapy has given me like the tools to strike the right balance of like, okay, because listen, my first reaction when people piss me off or say something that offends me is like, F you. Like, and I want to cuss you out. So a lot of times people don't realize like that's my thought life. And so, like, I'm probably cussing you out or wanting to cuss you out in my head. You might see that I'm crying, but that's more because I'm overwhelmed and I can't just cuss you out or I don't want to just cuss you out. So therapy has given me like tools to be like, okay, well, you might need to take a beat. Like sometimes I may need to go walk around, like you said, for a few minutes, take a few minutes, write it down in a note, come back to it when things are, feel more comfortable and feel better. But I still got to say it. Like you still have to say the thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise people are going to still continue to treat you however, because you haven't said anything and they're going to think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
You still got to say the thing.
you teach people how to treat you. And when
Yeah.
you don't say anything, that tells people that it's okay.
And you have to say the thing directly, because that's the thing with me, like even when I was in therapy, like at the beginning of therapy, I was learning to say the thing, but I was saying it in a way that didn't hit how it needed to hit. Like I needed it. I was like, oh well, maybe this, like that, doing that dance.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized, like, my therapist was basically like, I don't. That might have been a little too soft. Like that might have been a little too soft for somebody to really know what you meant. Like that you meant what you said. Like you need to deliver it with the energy, with some energy. And so that was something that I've worked on, and I'm a lot better now. Where I'm like, all right, if I need to take a walk, if I need to, you know, call you back, if I need to, whatever I need to do, but I'm gonna say the thing. I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna be direct.
I find that I am really just recently getting better about saying the thing.
Yeah.
Like the example that I had, I think I had like sent you a series of text messages, and this was like a couple of months ago, probably like in springtime, maybe early spring. Or no, not even. It was in the wintertime because it happened in February. I had finally just gotten to a place where I was like, there was a relationship that I needed to express that I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, you got to say the thing. And I do this with a lot of things that overwhelm me. I'll do the ostrich head in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if I don't see it, then, it's okay.
Not okay.
But it always comes back to bite you in the ass. So for me, I think that having had that conversation with it was a family member, really set the tone for like how I'm gonna move forward. But it was more or less like the realizations that I had prior to about myself in relation with this person. And it was like, I don't show up this way with anybody else, even people that I do not like. So there's no reason for this to exist between myself and this other person. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, it was also a thing of like, I didn't like who I was and how I felt when I was around or in communication with that person. And so it just was like time to be like, you know what? I have no desire to continue this. I just need you to understand. And while this might be where I am right now, like, I'd rather tell you than to continue to do the ostrich head in the sand thing, because that doesn't help anybody. The damn sure doesn't help me. As I'm waving my hand around, y'all, I realize how light I am. And like, this is crazy. Like, sis, you need some sun.
It's a little...
We is looking real pasty on these lights. I assure you, I am not that light. True. My yes, the other persuasion ancestors is coming through. Okay, like
on the palm side, looking very palmish. Yes.
I'm like, what in the, like, I'm just talking and I looked up and I'm like, y'all, I have a touch of undiagnosed ADD.
Yes, continue.
But yeah, like, having had that conversation was empowering in a way that I realized that I could say the thing, I could have all the emotions attached to the thing, and then end up in a precarious position with someone. And then when it was over, come out feeling like, whew. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, it has always been fear around confronting the thing, right?
Yeah.
Fear around having the conversation that you don't want to have with somebody because I don't want to get into a back and forth, which I successfully navigated without, getting into a back and forth. But like, that experience also taught me a lot about, which I had not taught me, it reminded me why I was making the decisions that I was making in regards to that relationship, which brings me to some questions that Nedra Tawwab had.
Let's do it.
And so she basically says that you can tell a lot about people by how they respond to your boundaries, how they respond to your feelings, how they respond when you need support, and how they respond to your growth. And I think that like these, not necessarily these are questions, but just like using this as like a meter for like that previous discussion, because I got this book well after I had that experience. And I was just kind of like, you know, dang, like this is spot on. For me, it was, once I made my decision and my statement, everything was, you know, like okay in regards to us being able to still commune and have family functions and be in the same room, but having an understanding of like, I don't like how I feel when I'm with you because I just, the feelings are not right. And my resolve in all things is I can't change the other person, but what I can change is myself. And so if I remove me from an environment and in a person that makes me feel uncomfortable, then that's what I'm going to do. All shade to the person that I'm speaking about. They were just not and are not emotionally capable of understanding that this is a boundary that your sister is setting. I just said what it was, so fuck it. It's my sister. I was trying to avoid that, but whatever.
I'm wondering how long you were going to make it. So go ahead.
Yes, it happens. I slip, and I never do that with clients. It's just my personal shit. But yeah, like it, this is like the boundaries that I'm setting as your little sister, and like, and understand that this is where I am right now. Things could change, you know, like, but she made it so that it was like if we were, you know, like hunting, like she shot the animal in the leg and then at the end blew its head off so we couldn't save it. And for me, it was all the things like, this is the boundary that I'm setting that you now have, you know, blew up. You don't care about how I'm feeling. You just want to retort, basically. You want to have a back and forth, which I wasn't going to have nor engage in. And the support and growth things don't necessarily matter in regards to that, because we don't have that kind of relationship. It was never that for myself and my sister. And so the thing that really stood out was, now you like people who do this like combative, because you said something that hurt my feelings, now I'm going to hurt your feelings, or I'm going to try to. And she did in that conversation.
I used to do that.
I don't, and that's something I realized that I don't do.
Yeah. Well, I have done it in the past with certain people, particularly ones where like I was very, very hurt about something. Then I would just say anything, which wasn't nice. I don't live like that anymore, thank God.
Like I would just be the really, really hurt person.
Yeah.
And I often wouldn't say anything. And I remember in that conversation, like I'm the transparent person here on this podcast. I just be telling you all my business, but
yeah, I'm not. I'm not ever going to tell you all my business, but go ahead. Somebody has to. Go ahead.
I think that for me, it was just kind of like, you really don't get it. And like, now you want to bait me into a back and forth because your feelings are hurt. So you're just going to say any fucking thing.
Yeah.
And which further solidified, like I said, like this cannot be. I don't want you around.
To take a quick break from boundaries for 2 seconds. It is interesting being a therapized person in an untherapized world.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that a lot of my friends have been, so we speak the same language in that way. Uh, a, some of my family has been at least to a few sessions. Um, Cousins definitely older, not so much, but some of them have been to at least a couple of sessions. Um, but yeah, it gets real because you be like, well, I don't understand why you're stuck here and why you got to do this and why. And it's just because that's just how they've been doing it. And there's nothing that has challenged them. And they don't understand why it is that you have moved on or why you have chosen something different, or they don't even realize that they have the ability to choose. Like some people are going through life just going through it and thinking that they have a very limited menu of options. They haven't even thought about something else. And I think that's where it gets interesting with having these boundaries and having to have these tough conversations, particularly with your family members.
I agree. Because I think the dynamic had always been, I'm the little sister. So the dynamic had always been from the perspective of, I can't speak for her, but my experience was her berating me and being disrespectful and saying all types of things and sometimes wanting to physically attack me when we were kids and or when I was a teenager and she was a grown adult. Like, and me like saying little stuff but never saying or doing the thing. We probably would be better off had I beat her ass a long time ago because my sister is all of 4'11". Okay.
I'm a fan of somebody getting their ass kicked because I think sometimes that's the only time people learn how to behave.
Hello, learn to shut the front door up.
And I'm not talking about like whoopings. Like I don't think parents need to be like exerting that type of control, but out in the streets and if you run your mouth, I think sometimes the girls need to get bullied a little bit. I'm be honest. Like
baby, I'm telling you. And it was like I don't know. What I know is that my sister has never been in a physical altercation.
Yeah.
I have. On a few.
I didn't fight. I didn't fight like out in the world, but I fought my cousins. If they said something, I would fight them. Sure, why not? Like,
I mean, that's enough. You still had physical, like I'm talking about somebody that's like a yipping, like little pincher dog.
yeah.
It's a whole lot of mouth and energy, but like, bruh, neither here nor there. The thing that really like blew it all up was like when people take it too far. And so she said something toward the end of the conversation, which blew the head off, right? But then a couple of weeks later, went even further and then tried to basically manipulate. When I say take it too far, I mean folks that want to manipulate you into doing what it is that they want.
Yeah.
So she sent me a text message a couple of weeks later stating that I was no longer welcome in her home, that I could not see the children without her being present, and that in order for this to be rectified, then we would have to sit down with a mediator or that we could sit down with my therapist, in which I've responded with blocking her. I just never said anything because I was like, you know what, baby, you don't get it. And herein lies the problem. You need to go and get therapy. Everybody does, right?
Everybody does.
Like, I'm not using therapy as a weapon, like something is wrong with you, even though something is wrong with my sibling, okay? But like, everybody needs therapy because it's beneficial to you as a person, right?
Yeah.
So
at minimum, I feel like it holds space. Like,
yes.
For instance, when I'm moving through the world and something is upsetting or something triggers me, I have a list in my phone and we are going to get all the way into it. I don't need to go melt down, on the side of the road every day. But what I do know is this is my time is every other Thursday at 4 p.m. to go and discuss this shit and get it out. And that's what I'm going to do. And so I think it's just good to know that you're holding space for yourself to have time for you every other week or once a week or however often you decide to go.
As you should. I think that had she had heed the words that I left her with in that last conversation, which was me pleading for her to go get her own help and her own therapy, maybe she wouldn't have sent that crazy ass message. I don't know.
Well, I think it's a learning process for everybody. That's the thing. Like, people are used to how you are or how you were, and they're gonna have to re-meet. They're gonna have to meet you again. You're gonna have to reintroduce yourself again and again and again as things happen in life. And unfortunately, some people aren't able to make those adjustments.
Not in the slightest, and that's okay. I think for me, therapy has also been an advocate in me unlearning this list of things that Nedra had given. So I have another tidbit for us. Pretending to be okay, staying in toxic relationships because you believe that it's necessary, limiting beliefs about what you can and cannot do, beating yourself up, minimizing or ignoring your own feelings, believing that you don't deserve good things when bad things happen. And the last one is that being vulnerable is a sign of weakness. And I think in regards to my little story time about my, crazy shit house mouse ass sister, I had done all those things for so many years. That had been the relationship dynamic between myself and my sister. And I remember when we were in undergrad, and this is when we lived together, she had come to visit, and you and I were having a conversation either after the fact or before she got there, one of the two, I can't remember. And we were just kind of discussing like, I said to, this was after the fact, because it was me, you, my friend from VSU, and maybe it might have been Stacy and Kianya, I think. I feel like all of us were there.
Okay.
But I was saying to you all, because like one of you had said, I don't know if it was you or it was Kianya, but one of you had said something like, I didn't even know you had an older sister. And I was just like, because like, I'm related to her, but like to me, you all are my sisters. I have more of a sisterly relationship with you all and with other female friends. Like Shannari was older than us, but she was more of a big sister to me than my own sibling was. And so shout out to all of you who I just mentioned, but like, that was real for me. Like I was not close to her at all, but I was close to you, especially like, I need to call her. Shannari was a couple of years older than us, but like she was literally like my big sister. And so, I feel a little emotional. Suck that on back, sis. Not that being emotional is a bad thing. I just have no desire to cry when I have on black eyeliner. But yeah, like I could lay on Shannari, like literally lay my head in her lap and not feel weird about it. I could hug Shannari and be hugged up on her, and like how I'm very touchy-feely with people that I care about, right? But whenever my own sibling would want to hug me and like touch me, and like I would always be cringy. And like literally like do this.
I'm a big believer that like I don't know when I feel like I've always been self-aware, and I think I've said this before. I've been very intuitive my whole entire life, like my literal whole entire life. But I realized very early on that I'm just not gonna bang with everybody, and everybody ain't gonna bang with me. And it's like
I never got that.
It was very early, and I just realized like I was not everyone's cup of tea. And they weren't mine either. And I didn't like them, and I didn't have to have a reason not to like them. Sometimes people were just in my presence and I was like, nope, don't like the energy. I didn't have the language for that, but it was just like something about it felt icky. And so I was just like, That's plenty. I don't need to know more. And so I don't typically take it personally when things don't go well with other people. I'm just like, this didn't happen. This just and that's family too. Like I have family members that I'm like, I mean, not a ton. Like my family's pretty close, but I do have some family members that I'm just like, and I just don't. There are some that I've chosen to have limited relationship with as well, and I'm fine with that too. I just realized that you know it just doesn't work for whatever reason. It doesn't. We don't align our energies. I don't need that kind of stress in my life. I don't need the kind of stress that I'm in conflicting energy with people. It's just a no for me.
Yeah. I feel like, now I have kind of gotten better about then everybody ain't gonna jive with me type deal and vice versa. But like I was always okay with me not liking other people. It was weird
Right.
for folks not to like me because everybody likes me.
Oh yes. I don't have any problem with that at all. I don't care when people don't like me.
I would always be so bewildered, and it's just like because it don't happen often, and that is like honest to goodness truth. It
Yeah,
doesn't
because
happen
you're
often.
a very friendly person, and I think maybe that's what it is. Like, I know that I'm not super friendly off bat. The thing about me is most people that know me like me. Like once you get to know me, most people really like me. But like I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and for people who need an instant connection, they're never going to be my cup of tea either.
But the irony is like in regards to the dynamic between us, it was an instant connection for me. I was like, okay, I like her. She's straight shooter. She say exactly what she thinking. We laugh, we kiki, no problem. I never had like the funny like ugh, about you, like at
Yeah,
all.
but we met in a different space too. Like we met with friends in social settings, so that's a little bit different, I think.
No, it ain't because I remember I met the other girl at the same time, and it was instant like, oh no.
Yeah, she's one of those, but yeah, but maybe. And like, listen, and like I said, maybe just our energies jived and got along well, and like it was cool. Like we know right off bat that we would be, like we got along well right from the start. But I know that everybody's not like that, and some people don't have that like barometer of like energy, and they're not looking at that. They're looking at how nice and friendly you are, and like how much you smile at them, and like do you make them feel warm and fuzzy? And I'm like, I'm not a warm and fuzzy.
What is
Like
all it is? What?
so warm and fuzzy. I am not that. If you're waiting on that for me, you're gonna be waiting forever. Like
Then the irony is I realize now that I am more of like that, like you, than I was back then.
yeah,
The warm and fuzzies was all over. And now
yeah,
I'm very much like
definitely.
but I
You're
think part of
very
that
warm, or you were. I can't speak for now, but
I think that I still offer warmth, but it's like don't get too close.
yeah.
And a lot of that is from me having been if full disclosure, being jaded by people in
I
relationships.
mean, of course, I think life kicks our ass in different ways.
For sure. Like to the point of like me feeling like everybody is my friend, or like that whole comment. Like my mom and I were talking about that last week, and she was just like, "My poor child." I kept trying to tell you when you was little that everybody wasn't your friend, but she was like, "You did not care. Everybody was your friend until they wasn't your friend, and then your little feelings would be hurt, and then I would have to pick you up, and then within 20 minutes, she was like, okay, that's fine." But she was like, the funny
Under
thing
no
is
illusions.
she said the funny thing about all of that is you are still very much that way to an extent. And I was like, yeah, I guess. Not really.
I
I'm
mean,
friendly, but like you don't get to come into the fold. I really gotta fuck with you now.
yeah. I mean, it's evolved. I think it's evolved for all of us in one way or the other.
Yeah, for sure. Um, oh, I was trying to think. I'm like, I had something else that I had put highlighted in here that I wanted to chat through. So she has like a couple of things that like the reasons we tolerate boundary issues. And so this one, Let's get your thoughts on it. But she says, we aren't aware that we need to set boundaries, and the reasons why could be that signs that we might need to set a boundary. The most significant symptom is discomfort, which manifests itself into anger, resentment, frustration, and burnout. When we feel any of these, it's likely that we need to set a boundary. And I think that for a long time, like I would be, and for most people, honestly, like clients that I've spoken to, the feelings of like discomfort, they don't, and myself included, don't necessarily connect with me feeling like, you know, I'm angry about something or that I'm frustrated in a way. Like people tend to, in my experience, tend to separate like certain words, right? So I could be very frustrated about, like a couple of months ago, I was frustrated about like trying to figure out what I was going to do next. But I wouldn't necessarily, if someone said, well, you know, are you having a sense of discomfort? And I would be like, well, no, that's not it. And I think a lot of people do that in the sense that like all the negative sounding words about a thing, they don't want to gravitate towards. It's like calling a thing and you're not, like when you say it out loud, basically, then it becomes a reality and people aren't necessarily ready to face that. Because then there's like a, there's the conundrum of like, okay, well then this is what the thing is. So then what do I do now? Like how do I handle that?
I think that's a big part of it. And yeah, I think a lot of those negative emotions do come up when it is time to set a boundary. It's like, if you're always feeling like this makes me angry, then it might be time to say, okay, let me get to the root of what that thing is. Of really, it's like emotional. It's the emotional deep diving, because you have to first recognize the anger, and then you have to realize like, okay, something is causing this. And you're lucky if you get the anger first. Let's be honest, because a lot of times we get sad, and we're sad because we're actually angry. But nobody's supposed to be angry. Nobody's supposed to be resentful. Nobody's supposed to be like those big words, you know? And then, you know, you're angry. Now you have to figure out why you're angry. And then that's the thing. It's just it's a lot of labor to try to figure out when you need to set a boundary. Sometimes it's easier to just like, for instance, I mean, this is like not really a boundary issue, but I'll just give it to you for this. So I used to commute a really long way between home and work. And there was always a certain point where I'm like raging and I'm like cussing everybody out and honking on my horn and all of this stuff. And it's like sometimes the answer is just as easy as getting off a couple extra exits up and like driving on some side roads to get home in a peaceful state. You know what I'm saying? But that was something that I had to mind, like, why am I getting home and feeling like I done been to war every time? Like, okay, well, maybe it's because I've exhausted myself being angry at the fact that I can't get off on my exit when I want to get off on my exit. So now what am I going to do about it? I am going to give myself peace by getting off several exits earlier. Now, that also has to do with maybe the fact that I don't really care for my job. That's a whole other set of circumstances that you have to deal with now. It's like sometimes the emotion is the easy part. It's the dealing with the core of the emotion. That's the hard work.
Totally.
And like trying to find a solution, like that's the hard work. Or setting a boundary when it's necessary. That's the work. And people don't want to work. People don't even get past the emotion. The emotion is easy.
Truth. To her point, she had a list in here too, along the lines of what you were saying. And she was just kind of like 9 potential reasons why we can't sufficiently set a boundary is you fear being mean, you fear being rude, you're a people pleaser, you're anxious about the future interactions after a boundary has been set, you feel powerless and not sure that a boundary will help. You get your value from helping others. You project your feelings about being told no onto others. You have no clue where to start. And the last one is you believe that you can't have boundaries in certain types of relationships.
I like that last one.
Mm-hmm.
For me, though, anytime I've had a issue setting a boundary, it's been because I don't like conflict. Like, I'm very conflict avoidant.
Me too.
I don't enjoy it. And yeah, I think there's a lot of fear around, like, okay, what kind of response is this going to elicit? Am I going to have to go through it with this person to be able to set a good boundary? Is it worth it? Like, it's like doing that juggle, doing that math. And at the end of the day, it usually is worth it, even if you have to go through it with somebody.
Agreed.
And also, like, listen, sometimes you need the boundary to weed some people out, because if they keep disrespecting your boundary, then they can F and go. Like,
okay.
And it's probably time for them to do so.
I set a boundary with my sister, and then that was that. To your point about, like, if they keep, basically dancing all over your boundaries, then it's time for them to go. Like, I went through that with a friend recently. And I had stated very clearly several times that I don't like this thing, and they still continue to do it. And then finally, like, I just was like, okay, so I understand that there was no intention to, like, sound mean or be mean, but what you said pissed me off. And this is an ongoing behavior for you with me that I do not like, that I've expressly stated on a number of occasions that I do not like it. And so the resolve is that if this continues, this will make me stop speaking to you.
Yeah.
And their resolve was to tell me a week or so later that our relationship had run its course.
Fine.
And and I was just like, you know what? I agree. Because that said to me that you don't give a fuck about, you don't give a F about what I said and how you made me feel.
Mm-hmm.
And also that you're hellbound on saying and doing whatever it is that you like, regardless of how you make other people feel. Even when you've had conversations to state, like, if I ever say or do anything that upsets you, please let me know, and try to, do so. Like, there was an ask of me to do so in the moment. And so when I finally do, and it's clear and direct, then the relationship has run its course. And so, like, that goes back to the question that, or like the, like, point of something you should consider that Nedra asked, where she says, like, how they respond to your boundaries. Like, that response said to me, oh, okay, you don't care. You want to be able to do and say whatever it is that you feel, and never have someone basically check you about how you're handling them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not okay with me, because I'm not ever going to be in a relationship with anybody who operates that way.
Yep.
And I don't offer or extend my behavior to anybody in that way. So it's like, come on, you got to meet me halfway, especially when this is what you asked for. The type of communication that I provided is what you asked me for. And then you're like, nope, we're done. Mm-hmm. Okay. Bye.
It's what it is.
So, like, back to what I was saying, like, when you guys are, like, going through those tough conversations, when you finally get to a place where you are asserting your boundaries and you feel confident in what you're saying, or to the point of what Kendra said, where she was just kind of like, you got to say the thing in the moment. And you finally do. And
I didn't say in the moment. I said you have to say the thing.
Oh, my bad. I added in the moment.
You added that in the moment, because I rarely say the thing in the moment.
Same. But, like, when you finally get to the place of doing the two things that we have said that I combined it together, you realize, like, you know what, it's really not worth it to be combative or go back and forth with people who don't give a shit about you or how you feel and what you've expressed. It's just not worth it.
So before we wrap up, rather, I think all of this goes down to trying to have peace in your soul and in your spirit. So let's talk a little tiny bit about spiritual practices that we do for grounding and for peace and
100%.
self-care, since that's our topic.
100% my self-care practices have been over the last couple of years finding meditation and quiet time where I can kind of sit and be still so that like I can hear God. I think in the first episode we were talking about how when you pray, that's when you're talking to God, and when you meditate, it's when you're listening to God, which is something that Kim and both said on a podcast that you sent me. I think it was Debbie Brown's podcast. But like, I had always had that belief system. I just had never said it that way. And so I realized definitely like that is one of my, for sure, like coping mechanisms is just being able to find quiet time to be still and to hear. I don't know that I use that method as often as I probably should, because I do go into therapy bi-weekly at Mondays at 2:00. I'm with my therapist. But I think that part of my spiritual practice has been to be in therapy, right?
Yeah.
To have someone to be like my accountability, a partner in the sense of like setting my emotional boundaries and being comfortable in the things that I've set forward. Outside of that, I think one of the other practices that I do periodically throughout the year is I will immerse myself in a spiritual bath that I've made for myself. And depending on what the intention was for said bath is why I do them. Most often it is to wash off whatever unnecessary energetic gunk that I have picked up between work and, friendships, relationships, whatever the case may be, like washing away. Sometimes you have to literally and physically wash away the heaviness that you have on your spirit. And so like, I'll light me a candle, I'll throw me a couple of herbs in the bath, and I will turn off all of my electronic devices, set the intention for what I am getting in this bath or in this water for, and then I will just sit in there and soak for like probably 45 minutes because the water be super hot, so it lasts that long.
Yeah. I don't have a ton of like spiritual practices. I probably need to get better about that. Yeah, I don't have a ton. Anytime I've meditated, I feel like I've gotten a lot of it out, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I've gotten a lot out of it, but I don't do it as regularly as I should. I do feel that I try to move through the world and honor the God voice or the instincts, and what they're telling me, big and small. If I'm halfway down the street and I feel like I've forgotten something, I will turn around and go home, because I feel like that's how you hone your God voice, your spirit voice in those small moments. By honoring it in the small moments, that's when you get those bigger revelations. So like I said, even if I feel like I've forgotten nothing, like I'll turn back around and come back inside and be like, oh, there's my lunch on the counter, or there's my whatever, and I try to really, really honor all of the messages I receive, big and small. And I think that's my biggest spiritual practice. That's pretty much it for me.
Well, same for me. So thank you all for checking us out this week and listening to us. Please share with us your self-care methods, and if any spiritual practice that you guys have, maybe Kendra might try some of that stuff too. Who knows?
We'll see.
Drop us a couple of comments.
Don't weird stuff in, because nothing weird. No, I'm just kidding. Put it all in.
Drop us a couple of comments and let us know what you think. Please, by all means, get the conversation started, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, everywhere. Follow us everywhere. Black and Curious.
Oh, yes. I forgot that part. Good looking at. Bye.